Welcome back to Freedom Algo. Happy Halloween. It is Halloween 2024. And we had a big bearish day on the ES. So I'm going to go through the trades that you could have taken today following the price action strategy with a 2000 tick chart. And there's actually several today. A lot of greens in here, but there's definitely some reds and some blues as well, and definitely some runners. So this was one of those days where you could catch huge moves and be done pretty early if you caught the best one early on. So basically, when we came in, we had this gap way above us, and we had opened and we had moved down. So we had this gap of where we closed yesterday all the way up here. So you're thinking, hey, it's a possibility that we come up. Now I have this gap all the way down here that we almost filled today, but we're 2 ticks off at 57.50. This is just an open gap that never filled. So I had this on my chart. And basically what we had was a real tight channel working down that then broke and got a new low. And then we ended up having this big wider channel that eventually broke, got a new low, formed another tight down channel that then also broke and got a new low. And then we went into this sideways range. A little bit of rallies in there, but mostly sideways. So let's take a look here. I'm going to zoom in, go over what we saw here. So we'll start over here. And this is at 6:30. So I want to call this out. There really wasn't a way to get into some of these trades over here because we had data here at 5:30 my time, Pacific time. So there was a data release there. And so even when we were grinding up here early on, there just wasn't really a way to get into a trade here. Now, unfortunately, after the data release, I actually saw here we had a pullback first entry, pullback second entry long, but the signal bar was terrible. So this was long enough after data, almost 10 minutes later, that if this candle closed bullish, I would have taken a long there just to get a scalp. It ends up not happening. It does go up, but you can't take that trade. And so then it goes up, it goes sideways, you get another move up, and then this one goes low. But you can't take a short here either. It's not really any sort of real trade. So you kind of just have to let this go without you, unfortunately. And then it just goes sideways, and there's just no real trade here. You could argue that there's a first entry, second entry long that fails, but it's sideways. There's really no trade there. So then you have this going down. It just opens this way. And so the market kind of opened somewhere right around here after this candle. And then it just starts shoving down. And at this point, there just isn't really a way to get into this. Now, there are some arguments to be made that if you saw this down channel, you could argue that maybe you could have taken one of these first entry signal bars that looks bearish. You know, if they came back to the trend line, that's probably the only one. But again, I don't know. It's just you're going into the low. You don't know for sure. You're far away from the EMA. I don't love that. So anyway, I'll mark it, but it's risky. So I didn't take anything in there. So then after this, you do get this move here. So you get a close outside and a new low. Now this is a green because with a move like this, you could end up going up and then getting a second leg down to a new low before it reverses. But you're far away from the EMA, so you could play this one. I didn't love that one either, but the higher low was decent. So then right afterwards, it comes up. You get a higher low here off of the low, and it's a pretty bullish candle. It's still within this trend line, so I like this one. And even if you had this trend line drawn tighter, like even if you had it drawn like this, it's still not a close outside because that's still within. So I like that one, and that's a decent long. And then what you get is first entry, second entry short failure. So this one, you would have had to wait for this to close and then wait until it goes above this for it to really trigger because it's a first entry short, second entry short. Now this goes up and stops this out, but you wouldn't have waited. You would have waited for this to close and you would have had to wait for it to then move. So that's why this is a green because it doesn't just take off. It ends up taking off over here finally. So you would have actually had to wait until after this candle closes to enter because you would have been trying to go in above this. So once it breaks above here, then you could drop your order and try to ride it up. And at this point, you would have had this probably drawn a little lower. But then afterwards, you kind of move this over and it ends up lining up with this. So then what you get is you get this move here. So what you get is a first entry long pullback, second entry long failure. This one's risky. It ends up actually almost stopping you out if you took it. Because at this point, this would have looked like it might have been breaking out of this trend channel. I had it drawn a little lower earlier, but it ends up working out. But the better move is this one here because this is now a lower high. So I like this one better because this is kind of the continuation pattern. It's a lower high. It really confirms that this trend line is in play. It's below the EMA, and you have plenty of room to down here. It's looking like it's going to be a bearish day. Now, if you caught this one, then you definitely got a runner, and you pretty much could be done for the day after that trade because that thing was huge. So then it goes down. You get a close outside, new low. Then it kind of goes into this like sort of sideways channel, but you're within this bigger channel. Now, you get a nice rejection right off of it. This isn't really a second entry short or anything because it's really a first entry short, second entry short, kind of third entry short. So you can't really trade it as a second entry, but what you can trade this as is just failed breakout out of the consolidation here, and also just a rejection right off the key entry point. This one, if you entered it on the engulfing bar, it's a little risky. If you waited for it to close, it's huge. I mean, it's a 23 tick bar, but it still works out. I mean, you still definitely get your move. So if you wait for this to close, you could drop a limit order a little bit back and then try to get filled and then just take it from there. Just because you know it's really bearish close below the EMA, it's probably going to go down back to the bottom of this level. So it's just a really bearish day. So you're expecting that. And this is basically the uptrend playing out because it's a close outside and a new low all at once. So that's why you kind of have to wait for it to close. If you enter on the engulfing bar, it's too risky because then basically it could come back in and this up channel could still be in play. So you do have to wait for that one to close, in my opinion. All right, so then it comes down. You do get this kind of chop downward. And this one, I had drawn this as kind of like a possible range. And I just like this one as a first entry short, second entry short. It's a hidden second entry short. That's what that is. It's a little more advanced, but it's a really bearish candle. It's looking like it's going to reject the range here right off the EMA. It's bearish. It's a bearish day. So I think you're safe to take that. You don't get a runner out of it because it keeps coming back, but it still gives you a pretty nice trade. You probably don't get a runner there because it probably fills your scalp on one of these candles and then stops out your runner. But decent trade. Then it comes down, and then finally we break out of this big down channel. So we break out of it, and you have this up channel working. You have a double top here, and so you kind of have a first entry, second entry. This is a hidden second entry long. So if you took that just to try to see if maybe you're going to get a new high here, it's okay. It's not a perfect setup because you're probably expecting a new low here. So it's questionable. It works for a scalp. I didn't love this trade. I was thinking we're probably going to go lower, but I just marked it because some people probably took that. And it does work, but you're definitely taking some risk on taking that trade right there. All right, so then what you have here is from this level, you could then see this as the wider first entry, second entry long failure. So it kind of serves as like, hey, possibly we're just going to go lower and make the new low on this wider channel now. And this is basically like a first entry, second entry failure. And it ends up, that one is nice, and you get a runner most likely out of this one because you drop your limit order a little bit back, get filled, and then you get a runner. So that one's a nice trade. A lot of the trades today were for me were for drop. I was dropping limit orders, not entering on stop orders, and that was giving me a little bit better entry. And I was scalping 6 ticks, and then letting my runner run from there. So I was getting some really nice trades. All right, so then you're in this down channel. At this point, you could draw this down channel off of probably like this kind of close area, and you get a trade here, which ends up being this up channel goes up. You get a double top close outside. So it's basically this channel played out, comes down. And what you get here is a first entry that then pulls back. And it's basically a second entry long that fails. So it's risky, but it's really bearish candle. You got this downtrend going. It's kind of, at the time, it would have been like basically right off the key entry point. So if you took that, it's fine. You do end up having to sit sideways in it. So a little bit questionable there. You end up getting stuck in consolidation, but it does end up working out. Comes down. Nothing really in there. You end up with this little tighter range. This one was really simple. It's just a first entry, second entry short off the key entry point. That's all that one is. Candle isn't perfect. That's why it's marked green. If this was a little more bearish, I would have said it was a good trade. Then this one comes up, and it's basically like a lower high. This is like a 1-2 triple test on the lows, but You could kind of see this all as one move right here, and you could count this as a first entry, second entry short again. It's also just like this tight range playing. It's a lower high. It's off the EMA. You could kind of call it a triple test off that level to the short side, and it is bearish. It's a close outside of this, so you're probably expecting a new low. It ends up working out. Comes down, you get a channel up, and a close outside and a new low all at the same time. So this is another one of those ones where you have a big candle, it's 20 ticks, and you can't really enter this on the engulfing bar very well. I mean, you kind of can because it's a first entry, second entry short, but it is a little bit risky because this could end up coming down and then go up and it's not really a close outside yet. So I think you got to wait for this to close, then this breaks lower, and then you could drop your limit order back maybe on one of these areas and then ride it down, and it ends up working out fine. A little risky. It's above the EMA. You don't know for sure if it's going to go low. You already have a new low, so it's a riskier trade, but it does look like a trap, so it's a decent one. Then at this point, you start to form this range. You come up after this one has played out. You then make this channel, gives you a double top and a close outside, and right here. And so I have a range that I drew. Originally, I had the lows right here. I eventually moved them down to there. And basically, what you get here is a a first entry, second entry that fails, and it's a really bearish bar, and it kind of confirms this trend channel working down. And so I like that one. You can kind of see this has already played out. Probably going to go down towards the bottom of the range. Then there's not really any other trades until way over here. When we finally come back up to the range highs again, nope, I wasn't watching, but this would have actually been probably a reasonable short because it's kind of a triple test. That high, that high, that high. So I'm going to mark that as a possible triple test off the top of the range. That's a pretty reasonable trade to take. I wasn't watching it because I was doing the video, but you can see here what we have is up channel, close outside, new high that then reverses. And so this is a really nice one because it goes up and it makes like this engulfing bar that goes down. Um, so for me on this one, you probably could enter this one on the engulfing bar because it's a close outside and the new high playing out. And you're expecting that it's probably rejecting there. But if you did wait for this to close, that's totally fine because you get the move. It's safer probably if you wait for it to close, but it's a big one of those big 19 tick bars. Then you have a first entry, second entry long that fails. So you could enter that one. You would have been sitting sideways for a second before it really went to your level, but it ends up working out. It's also a second entry short. The signal bar is not good for a second entry short, but because it's a failed second entry long, it ends up being a pretty reasonable trade. And then you come up, you get this triple test off that blue line and a close inside off the range high. So that's a pretty reasonable trade. And let's see what we actually get here. It looks like we're getting a first entry long here. And off of the low, it's actually a first entry short. So this could actually end up being a second entry short off of this low. But it's a sideways kind of rangy type of thing. You're probably not really going to just take a short right here because of how sideways this all is. And the volume seems to have died off, so there's really not much going on. I do expect that we're probably going to fill this gap today. So there is that possibility. But if I was going to take a trade here, I'd want probably some sort of like maybe a failed second entry long, first entry pullback, second entry off of here, a lower high that fails, something like that. I wouldn't be looking at this as really much of a second entry short opportunity, but we'll see. Let's see what we actually get here. Um, yeah, first, because you could end up with it going there, there, and there. You could actually end up with another sort of a triple test if it rejects this blue line. So that's a possibility too. But volume is a little too low, so I'm going to wrap it up here. It's been a good day overall and pretty sweet like way for the day to kind of pan out. Earlier we were talking about this level and we were all kind of like, "Oh, is that really going to happen?" And there it is. You know, you never know what the market is really going to do. So you got to just kind of let the price action play out and stay on the right side of it. So anyway, I'll see you tomorrow.